Hello, you are listening to the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I'm your host, Catherine Carrigan, medical intuitive healer and Amazon #1 bestselling author. You can find out more about me and my work at my website, catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn more about how you can heal yourself naturally. Now, today I thought we would do something a little bit different, and that I'm going to talk to you about the 6 archetypes that keep you from being wealthy. Now, let's back up for a moment. What am I, a medical intuitive, doing talking to you about money and about your relationship with money? So, in my 28 years full time experience in natural healing, what I found is that many people's health issues boil down to their relationship with money. Now, why is this so critical? So, in your brain, you have what's called a reptilian brain. And when information comes into your brain, it comes into what are referred to as your amygdalae. So, you have 2 amygdalae. And if you go above your ears into your brain about 2 inches, you have these little amygdalae, and there's 2 of them on either side of your brain. And a good way to think about the amygdalae is that they're like the control towers at the airport. So information comes into the brain, and when you feel safe and at peace, the amygdalae send the information to the frontal lobes where you think logically, you access all of your years of education and your wisdom. Or when information comes into the amygdalae and you feel threatened, the amygdalae send the information to the back of your brain, the reptilian brain, where you're in fight, flight, or freeze. Now, what I find as a medical intuitive, that some of the issues that send people into the back of the brain, into the reptilian brain, have a lot to do with money and your relationship with money. And so many people think, well, if I just had more money, all my problems would be solved. However, it's about your relationship with money, which is what I'm going to be talking with you today. So, in my 28 years of experience working with people all over the world, what I find is that for me to help them become physically healthy and mentally, emotionally happy, that I end up having to do work to help them release the old archetypes and literally deprogram their unhelpful beliefs about money. So let's talk about this reptilian brain. So you have in your brain this reptilian brain. It's back in the brain stem, and when you're operating out of your brain stem and out of the reptilian brain, you're not able to access your wisdom. You're not able to access the knowledge that you acquired through education, and you're in fight, flight, or freeze. So the first thing a reptile needs is to feel safe. And in our culture, safety is all about this relationship that we have with money. And again, so many people think if I have more money, I'll feel safer. But I'm here to promise you it isn't necessarily about having more money. Although, if you're broke and not able to feed your family, that is definitely a cause for a tremendous amount of stress. But for many of us, it's about this relationship we have with money, which I'm going to be talking with you about today. Now, once the reptile feels safe, then they can eat. And what I found in my 28 years of experience in natural healing as a medical intuitive healer, that many people with eating issues, and I'm talking about every kind of eating disorder that you can find, that you can name, anorexia, overeating, bulimia, um, being overweight, all these patterns of disordered eating, if you look at underneath people's eating issues, you go right back to their money issues and go back to their safety issues. So I've worked with lots of people with, again, every eating disorder you can possibly imagine, the anorexia, the vomiting, the extreme dieting, the crazy diets, the yo-yo dieting. And underneath all that is not feeling safe. So first reptilian reflex, feel safe. Second reflex, once the reptile feels safe, then they can eat. And then the third reptilian reflex is to mate, to have sex, to have intimacy. And I tell all my single women clients, you can tell whether or not a guy is good marriage material by whether or not he has money issues or food issues. So once the reptile feels safe and is eaten, then they can mate. And what I've noticed, I remember spending some years studying with some relationship coaches. And what I noticed about the relationship coaches is that they were constantly on one crazy diet after another, where they ate no vegetables for 9 months or no carbs for 9 months, or they were, starving themselves for 18 hours a day. So as you resolve these money issues and feel safe and feel connected to the divine source, meaning God, that supports all of us in the abundance of nature, then you can resolve eating issues, you can resolve your relationship issues. So the money issues that I'm going to be talking about today underlie so many of our problems, whether it's our health, our relationship with food, our relationship with other people. So I'm going to be talking to you today about the 6 archetypes that keep you from being healthy. So recently I received an email from someone I've never met wanting me to give her money so she could give a TED talk to promote her work. She told me she was a long-term sufferer of a chronic illness. She had read an article that I'd written about on one of my blogs about a mudra for abundance from my book, The Little Book of Breathwork, and decided that since I was writing about money, I must be someone who hands it out for free. I wrote her back declining. Now, personally, I'm a big supporter of the Atlanta Community Food Bank. And during the pandemic, they experienced a 300% increase in demand for food. And this Atlanta Community Food Bank and Oxfam and food organizations all around the world, they rely on solicitation to support the needy. And I'm a big supporter of these organizations because when we work together at a community level and a global level, we're more likely to solve problems. But I don't believe in begging is the best way to promote a for-profit business. So I wrote back to her that if she wanted to attract true abundance, she needed to stop coming from the beggar and victim archetypes. So let's talk about what is an archetype. Archetypes are an unfortunate aspect of your ego self that gets in the way of you expressing your true self. Now, what is your ego? Your ego is an aspect of your mind that wants to keep you safe. So again, it's part of your reptilian brain that's always on the alert. Am I safe? Is the world a threatening place? The ego's main concern is survival and all the many things that you think you need, that you require to survive. Chief among them, money. Sometimes the ego thinks you need to be famous or glamorous. So the ego decides there's all kinds of things that you need. Now, what is your true self? Your true self is who you really are underneath the layers of archetypes you've plastered on top. So your true self is an aspect of your divine being. Your true self is strong, resilient, and always connected to unconditional love, also known as God, the true source of all abundance. Now, in my 28 years of natural healing, I've studied and mastered many modalities. That I have manuals from all these modalities all over my healing room. But one of the manuals that I rely on most is my manual to clear money issues. Again, it comes up so often. That's because so many people's health issues all boil down to their relationship with money. Now, why is this the case? When you struggle with money, some aspect of you, even if you drive up to your office, like some people have in their Mercedes convertible, is in survival mode. Now, when you're in survival mode, you live out of fight, flight, or freeze. On a physical level, you're constantly pumping out the stress hormones, cortisol and adrenaline. Cortisol breaks down your brain chemistry, your hair, your bones. It lowers your thyroid function. It decreases your metabolism. It interferes with your fat metabolism and your insulin. So it totally wreaks havoc on your health. And when you're in survival mode, you're holding your breath, looking around you at the world as a threatening place, projecting your fear out onto everything and everyone around you. So it's really critical when we are talking about true healing that you get out of survival mode. And when you're at survival mode, then you're connected to your true self. You're connected to this true source of abundance, God. You allow that divine guidance to guide you to everything that is good and for your healing and for your highest good. But going back to when you're in survival mode, you don't really want to share because something inside you believes in scarcity. You really believe there's not enough. There's not enough money. There's not enough clients. There's not enough business. There's not enough opportunities for everyone. So you hang on tight to what your ego believes is yours, not recognizing that every material thing that you have, your home, your car, your stuff, is just yours to enjoy for a short while until you shuffle off this mortal coil. So this earth has been around for millennia, okay? And the earth that we live in has been supporting many generations ahead of us. This firm conviction that you may have of scarcity translates into you struggling and what I refer to as the cult of difficult, the largest cult in the world. You think it's difficult to make money. You think it's difficult to earn a living. You think it's difficult to make ends meet. And when you hold these beliefs in mind and you're constantly telling yourself this story that life is difficult, that it's hard to make money, then so it is. Because your mind and the story that you tell yourself creates your reality. I'll never forget years ago, a client who had told me he was worth $15 million coming in one afternoon and asking if I would give him a discount on his session that day because the stock market had gone down the week before. It doesn't matter how much money you think you have or you don't have. What matters most is what's going on between your ears. When you get your relationship with money straight, you can strive in abundance without struggling. Now, I should know, when I first started clearing my own money issues, I discovered I was actually allergic to money. You can be allergic to anything. I now own my home, I own my car, I have investments that earn more than I pay myself in my business. I have no debt. I do what I love to do, and I'm able to focus on service when I do my work because of the inner clearing that I've done to get my head on straight about the true source of abundance in my life. I've helped countless clients get out of debt by clearing their money issues. I remember one lady who paid off $75,000 in 1 year due to our work together, alleviating creating heavy fees from interest payments. I told her, I said, hey, I just, this was worth every penny that you paid me for our sessions. Others have earned considerable amounts due to this inner work. Last year, one of my clients got a call from her broker at Morgan Stanley. The broker said, your investments went up at a higher rate than anybody in our firm last month, he told her. She didn't want to tell him her secret, but she told me, and she and I had a great laugh about the situation because she'd done a lot of work about her relationship with money. I've given talks to inspire other entrepreneurs how to do this, and I've talked about the principles of success as a holistic entrepreneur. Now, from my 28 years in natural healing as a medical intuitive healer, here are the 6 archetypes I observe hurt you the most when you're attempting to build true wealth in your life. And if you're operating out of these archetypes, understand these are going to affect your ability to earn money, your ability to keep money. Lots of people earn it but can't keep it. And they're going to also be affecting your physical health because they're going to keep you in fight, flight, or freeze. Now, the first archetype that I want to talk about is victim. Now, the trouble with coming from victim is that victims have no power. When you try to earn money as a victim, you will discover that other people are always taking advantage of you. You lose money even when you think you make wise investments. Victims never get ahead because they haven't learned how to be in their own power. Now, how can you tell whether or not you're in victim mode? If you're constantly thinking that other people are doing things to you, that you're in victim mode. If you think the economy is doing something that's to you, then you're in victim mode. If you think other family members are getting a better shape than you are, then you may be in victim mode. If you think that there's some reason outside of yourself that you're not able to earn a good living, you may be in victim mode. So it's very important that when you are wanting to heal your relationship with money and get out of survival mode, that you sit with yourself and ask, am I holding beliefs in my head about money where I'm a victim? Okay, even in the US, people are talking about reparations for slavery, and slavery was outlawed over a century ago. And yet people are still seeing themselves as victims, and this is a very disempowered way to approach things. Now, the second archetype that may be holding you back from being wealthy is beggar. Now, in Atlanta, there's a beggar on almost every major intersection. They're holding signs, they talk about their problems and asking for money. Most beggars try to convince you to give them money by describing their victim state. So beggars are very much aligned also with that victim archetype. Beggars have to rely on others rather than seeing themselves as the primary source of their income or their source of their own abundance. So when you're wanting to find out whether you're being driven by the beggar archetype, you want to ask yourself, who or what do I feel like I have to ask for money? Now, when we're little kids, sometimes our parents give us allowance. When we're employees of a business, then the corporation gives us money. So, but you're going to want to notice, where do I feel like I have to beg to survive, right? I have to beg for attention. Do I have to beg for money? Do I have to beg for love? So this beggar archetype is going to keep you in that survival mode. You're going to feel like you never have enough. You feel like you always are scraping by. And it's a very difficult place to be. Now, again, these first two archetypes of victim and beggar have a huge correlation to your mental emotional state. There's a lot of research that shows that people who are struggling for money are more likely to suffer from depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts. So it's really important that as you get your head straight and learn how to take care of your money and how to manage your money and how to be self-disciplined about money, realize that that's going to have a huge beneficial impact on your mental emotional health. Now, the third archetype that holds people back from being wealthy is the slave archetype. It can be extremely painful to observe people operating out of the slave archetype. And I want to honor the fact that in this day that people are still sold into slavery. It's completely wrong, especially sexual slavery. A lot of young people are caught in that horrible illegal trade. So if you're in that state, you absolutely need to get help. But part of this is we want to look at slaves. And slaves work for either nothing at all or the bare minimum. Slaves give away their life energy to their work. Now, you may think that just because you have a fancy corporate job with a big title that you're not a slave. I can recall a CEO receiving a call from the chairman of his public company while he was having a session with me. He earned literally tens of millions of dollars every year, but he was still a slave to his company. If someone else tells you how high to jump, what t-shirt to wear, and how late you have to work, you may be a slave. So if you're listening to me and you're wanting to root out where am I being a slave in my life, ask, am I a slave to money? Am I a slave to my job? Am I a slave to this idea of having to earn all the money while other people get to enjoy life? I can remember one time years ago being at a party and listening to the husband, and he worked 100 hours a week. His family was able to enjoy his money and enjoy the life that he provided for them, but he himself was suffering. His health was deteriorating. His physical health was being adversely affected. He was in complete adrenal burnout. He was depressed and he was anxious. So in life, we want to have a balance. Yes, we all have to pay the rent and buy food, but we want to make sure that as we operate more from our true self, that we can experience the abundance of the world around us and enjoy the life that you provide. So the fourth archetype that holds people back from being wealthy is monk. Now, monks think they're above it all, that they don't need money to survive. Now, monks may be extremely rare. Sometimes you hear about people who live a very isolated life and they're separated from society often. Money is very much like food. You can only go without it so long. You may think you can survive on sunshine and fresh air, but sooner or later, someone has to pay the rent, the gas bill, the food bill. Monks secretly rely on others to support them because somebody's got to pay the rent. Even if you're living in a park under a tent, somebody's bought that tent. So they are apparently more, they're underneath the monk archetype. You may be having the beggar, where you're relying on other people to give you handouts so you can continue this Spartan existence. So if you are wondering whether you are holding and operating out of the monk archetype, You want to ask yourself, um, do I really believe that I don't need money in order to survive? Money, most of us have a certain amount that we have to cover to pay the rent, to pay the light bill, to pay the water bill, the gas bill, the food bill, and the clothes, and so on. So you want to ask yourself, am I avoiding living in today's society? Am I withdrawing? And am I secretly expecting other people to support my existence? Now, the next archetype that holds you back from being wealthy is amateur. Now, one highly accomplished healer worked with me recently, and she had decades of experience. She was a true healer. She really knew how to help people become healthy. And although she knew she helped people get better, she wasn't running her business like a business. She had decades of experience and no business bank account. And she wondered why she wasn't earning more money. If you want people to treat you like a pro, like the master who you are, you need to run every aspect of your business like the pro who you are. Act like a dilettante, get paid like a novice. So, and a lot of this also has to do with our belief about ourselves. So many people are holding the belief that they're not good enough. Personally, I feel that everyone could benefit from a healing on being not good enough. It's like the whole world could um, could benefit from that. And one of the things that helps you get over this feeling of not good enough is to understand that if you are here alive on the planet at this time, it's because the world needs your vibration. You are already a VIP. What do I mean by that? You're a vibrational interference pattern. Your energy, your frequency is unique to you. So just like if you're listening to this broadcast, you may be a wonderful, caring, loving person, and I am also, but our energies are probably different. And once you understand that you're already a VIP, you're already a unique frequency, that the world needs your energy. The world needs you to do what you do in only the way you can do it. And when you understand that all you really have to do is be you, then all you really have to do is be the best you. You don't have to be taller. I'm 5'3". I always wanted to be taller. That never happened. Didn't work out for me. You don't have to have different hair color. This is my natural hair color. I always wanted to have red hair. Didn't work out for me. You don't have to be taller, richer, drive a faster car. All you really have to do is be yourself, use your own unique voice, give from your soul. And when you learn to give from your true self, then and just focus on being the best you that you can be, then you realize that you're already good enough, because you can be you. As Oscar Wilde said, I'm paraphrasing here, be yourself, everyone else is already taken. So when you get over this feeling like you're not good enough, you don't need more advanced degrees. You don't need any degrees, maybe. I don't know, depending on what your profession is. But all you really have to do is speak from your soul, operate from your true self, and give the world what you and you alone are here to give. And when you operate from that perspective, you can get over this feeling of amateur and getting paid like an amateur. Now, the last archetype that holds people back from being wealthy is glutton. The key to financial success is to live within your means. Now, I grew up in the American South, and growing up, I was always deeply inspired by stories of African American maids who saved $1 a week and ended up leaving $1 million to the Negro College Fund when they died. This is an absolute do not pass go direct connection with the way you handle food, and the way you handle money. So if you are poor at managing money, you're also going to have trouble managing the way that you eat, the intake and the outtake of food. Again, from decades of experience working with people to clear their issues around food, whether it's overeating, undereating, eating disorders, losing weight, and so on, I can promise you again that the way you handle money and the way you handle food is almost the same. And as you come to a better relationship with money and get out of survival mode and get out of these patterns of overeating, undereating, dieting, indulging, feeling like you have to scrimp and then completely blowing your money, you're going to heal your relationship with money and healing your relationship with food, because in fact, they're almost the same thing. So again, when I'm working with people with eating disorders, what I find is I have to go back into their safety issues and heal their relationship with food, with money, in order to get around to healing their relationship with food. Now, gluttons have a short-term outlook. They want immediate gratification. You may have heard about the marshmallow test, which is, the story goes there, you put a little child in a room with a marshmallow, and the researcher tells the child, I'm going to go out of the room for a moment, and if you don't eat the marshmallow when I come back, I'll give you another marshmallow. To build wealth, you need a long-term outlook. To build health, you need a long-term outlook. I find that 100% of my clients with eating disorders also have a disordered relationship with money. Do not eat more than you need. Do not spend more than you have to. Those who master these simple concepts can enjoy great wealth and excellent health into their older years. Now, as you hear about this list, you may recognize that you handle money out of one or more primary archetypes. So again, the archetypes, the 6 archetypes that keep you from being wealthy are victim, beggar, slave, monk, amateur, and glutton. Now, if you recognize that you're allowing your ego archetypes to manage your money, you will not be building wealth from your true self, which is always connected to an infinite source of abundance. If you look at nature, if you look at photos on my website, catherinecarrigan.com, and look at photos of my garden, nature is astounding. Every week I look outside into my little garden and I think, wow, this week, is it more gorgeous than last week or more gorgeous? It's just gorgeous all the time. The trees are growing, the flowers are growing. There's this abundance of nature all around us that comes from this unlimited source. And when we connect to that, we can earn and live from that source of abundance. So healing happens when you manage money from your true self, connecting to the unlimited supply and unconditional love all around you. In my work as a medical intuitive healer, I empower clients to identify and clear the archetypes that have held you back from being happy, healthy, and financially successful. Now, part of the reason that I'm talking about this now is that the coronavirus pandemic has disrupted the way we work and has brought many people's money issues to their conscious awareness. So this has been a time of incredible change. We've had changes with our health, we've had changes with our relationship, we've had changes with our work, how we're working. A lot of people are not going into the office. A lot of people are having to educate their children at home. And as you do the inner work necessary, you can actually survive, not just survive, but thrive in this changing environment. If you observe the abundance of nature, the only constant is actually change. So sometimes we can feel really thrown off by all of these changes, especially when there's a lot of changes all at once. It's one thing when only one thing changes, like if it was just your job or just the way your children got educated. But when it happens all at once, it's very, very stressful. As you align yourself with the true source of your abundance, you can thrive through the changing seasons and get out of survival mode. Now, let's talk about these archetypes and where did they come from? So, as a medical intuitive healer, again, these archetypes are aspects of your ego. And a good way of thinking about your ego is that it's this encrusted self, right? Um, Now, where did you learn this from? So, one way that you may have learned these archetypes, again, the victim, beggar, slave, monk, amateur, or glutton is past life. So you may have done these patterns. Your soul may have repeated these patterns over and over and over again, so much so that they have become part of your core personality and you don't know any way different. So if the archetypes come from your past life, then I'm going to do a healing with you. I'm going to identify how many past lives you have had practicing these archetypes, the emotions they brought up in you and still bring up in you, and any other relevant factors. And we're going to do a healing to complete the cycle of practicing this archetype. Now, another place where you may have learned these archetypes is in your family of origin. So when we look at money beliefs, often I have clients write down a journal, what did my father believe about money? What did my mother believe about money? So there's male fears and there's female fears. So for example, when I was working on myself and my own relationship with money, I remember realizing I was the only woman in my family at that time who even had a job. Now some of my female relatives do have jobs, but at that time when I did that inner work, I was like, wow, I'm the only woman in my family who was actually working at that time. So in the family of origin that I came from, the cultural programming that my family, the family beliefs was, if you're a woman, you find a husband who financially supports you. And if you're listening to this broadcast and that's your situation, then I honor your path. But we have to, again, when we're wanting to uncover the archetypes and understand why they have such a big grip on them, one of the places you want to look at is, what did my family believe about money? What was I told about money growing up? One of the things I remember, my father would always quote Ella Fitzgerald. And he said, according to Ella Fitzgerald, I've been rich, I've been poor, rich is better. So the family programming that I received was, it was better to be rich. Is it wrong? Is it right? Who knows? But you're wanting to ask yourself, what was I told about money when I was growing up? Especially before you were age 5, because before you're age 5, you're that family imprinting of those beliefs, you're very, very easily hypnotized and programmed at that time. So again, what did my dad believe about money? Maybe a lot of men feel like they have to sacrifice their health to provide for their family. So the men are the ones who work like slaves while others get to enjoy. So what's the belief about that? And then another place where you may have learned these archetypes is in your culture, the larger culture. So here we are today, and we receive a tremendous amount of information from the mass media, especially the social media. So we receive images of people in their apparently glamorous lives. Now, the images that we see on social media inside of ourselves, intellectually, we know that may not exactly be how it really is. Just because it looks all beautiful in these images on Instagram doesn't mean those people are actually as wealthy as they appear, or as happy as they appear, or as successful as they appear. But we certainly get these images, and we get this idea of how much money we're supposed to have, what kind of clothes we're supposed to wear, what kind of cars we're supposed to drive, what kind of sneakers we're supposed to wear, right? Is it true? Is it not true? What messages are you receiving from your culture, right? And what messages are you receiving from your culture about what the definition of success is? I remember my mentor in healing, she told me one time, she said she prayed and asked for the definition of success, and she received the message, your success as long as you're breathing. So many of us, when we look at the messages we receive from our culture, success is often equated with financial success. Is it true? Is it not true? What's true for you? So you want to really sit with yourself and ask yourself, where did these archetypes come from? Did they come from past lives? I can definitely help you with that as a medical intuitive healer. Did these beliefs come from my family of origin? And did they come from the culture that's getting reinforced by all these images in the media and mass media? And what are you reading? What are you looking at that's reinforcing that you have to live out of these archetypes? Now, once you kind of do that work of understanding where these archetypes came from, another thing that's really helpful as we go about healing and unwinding the tremendous grip that these archetypes have on us is by asking yourself a question, which is, what is the belief system that you have constructed around this archetype that's holding these beliefs in place? So, for example, if you are operating out of the slave archetype, you're the CEO, you're making 10 millions of dollars every year, but you're still a slave. What beliefs are you holding that are holding that in place? If I don't make $10 million a year, there's something wrong with me. I'm no longer a success. What is it? And finally, as we go through and look at the beliefs that you're holding, that's holding these archetypes in place, often I'm going to do a healing with you to be willing to let go of the archetypes, because usually all of these archetypes underneath all this is a degree of fear. It may be a low level of fear, it may be a high level of fear. But again, what are the fears that are keeping these archetypes in place? Because you believe that if you don't act this way, you're not going to be able to feed yourself, to keep a roof over your family's head, and so on. So when I do healing work, I work with clients all over the world. I can work with you by phone, Skype, WhatsApp, or Zoom. I take extensive notes, and that I will email you when we're done. So just remember that these archetypes that are holding you back from being wealthy are keeping you from experiencing the true abundance that is your natural birthright. So if you're alive today, listening to this broadcast, you're a soul. Your soul has an important purpose. You're here to be you. You're here to offer your specific vibration at this time to the world around you. And as you discover your soul purpose and you live from your true self, then you're going to find that you're naturally supported, and you're going to find ways of earning a living that come with ease and grace and you're going to be able to get out of the survival mode and turn off the stress hormones that have kept you sick, miserable, fat, and unhealthy for so long. Thank you so much for listening. This is Catherine Carrigan. I'm a medical intuitive healer, Amazon #1 bestselling author, and host of the Natural Healing Show for UK Health Radio. I hope that you've enjoyed this broadcast. And remember that when you can live your life from your true self, you're going to experience abundance, health, and feel great naturally. Thank you so much for listening, and please visit my websites, catherinecarrigan.com and unlimitedenergynow.com. While you're there, definitely sign up for my newsletter so you can learn even more about how you can heal yourself naturally. See you next time.